welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi there, and welcome to Turn the Page podcast. I'm Katherine, your friendly neighborhood reference librarian, and today I'm here with Devon Daniels, author of the upcoming romance novel Star-Crossed Summer. Welcome, Devon.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you. Um, Before we dive into this book, would you like to introduce yourself to our
Sure.
listeners?
Sure. I'm Devon Daniels. I am 44 years old, mom of four. I live in Maryland, basically right outside Annapolis. This is my third novel, and my first one that I would classify as a beach read. Um, my first one came out in 2021. My next one, the rom-com, came out in 2023. And then here I am in 2026 with my third novel with Berkeley Romance, and I'm just so thrilled to get to talk about it since I've been working on it for, for 3 years now.
Well, believe me, I am also excited to talk about it. I have been devouring this book. It's one of those books where like you're right, it's a perfect beach read. It's light and airy, but it has those like emotional beats to it that really just like keep me hooked in. And not to oversell it, but your romance had me giggling and kicking my feet like I was a teenager again. So,
That's the goal. Yay, I'm thrilled to hear that.
yeah, so I'm excited that this book is coming out so soon in July, right?
Yes, July 7th, Tuesday, July 7th, it will be in bookstores everywhere and in libraries as well.
Excellent. So, just in time for your next beach read. I'm very excited to share this with other people so I can actually talk to people about this. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Star-Crossed Summer?
Yes, absolutely. So Star-Crossed Summer is the story of Scarlet and Ryder. It takes place in a dual timeline. So you have the past storyline, which is 10 years ago, and then the present storyline, which is, present. And back in the past, they meet as sort of young, fresh, upcoming actors who are unknown. They get cast in a movie and they promptly go to a seaside town in South Carolina, which is a fictional town that I created called Sea Folly, but it's based on sort of all the barrier islands right outside of Charleston, Seabrook and Kiowa Island and Isle of Palms in that area, if anyone has visited. And so they film their movie, and at first they don't get along. There's a bit of an enemies to lovers element to this book where they don't get along, they're butting heads, but then they do fall in love. This is in the past storyline. However, this is interchanging with the present storyline where you learn that they broke up 10 years ago. You don't know why. And they're thrust back together for a reunion of this movie, which ends up being a massive hit. And they haven't seen each other in 10 years. And you also learn that Ryder really doesn't know all the reasons why they broke up and that she's been keeping a secret for 10 years. And then their romance unfolds in the present day as well. So I like to say you get two love stories in one. And the mystery, of course, of why they broke up will keep you turning the pages. But it is just really a delicious romance. And I had so much fun incorporating the beach setting into the book. It's a place that I love so, so much. These, like the Charleston beach area where I've been vacationing now for about 11 years. But in a nutshell, I like to tell people if you know anything about the movie The Notebook, you will recognize a lot of fun parallels in this book. So some people know about this, some people don't. There's a lot of lore behind the filming of the movie The Notebook with Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling, where they had an audition together that was like, had amazing chemistry. They were both cast, they were both unknown at that time. They filmed this movie in Seabrook Island, South Carolina. And I guess when they got onto set, for whatever reason, they did not get along at all. And in fact, Ryan Gosling tried to have Rachel McAdams essentially replaced from the movie. They were constantly butting heads, but they ended up finishing the filming of the movie, and it came out, and it was this massive, massive hit, which really propelled them both to stardom. And interestingly enough, 2 years after that, the two of them began dating in real life, which is just crazy, and it has never really been explained by them. They dated for a couple of years before breaking up. Of course, we know they're married to other people now, but Sort of the mystery behind their sort of real life enemies to lovers romance has been living in my mind rent free for about 20 years. And I've thought about this constantly. And I knew eventually I wanted to try to sort of write a fictional version of their story and translate that love story to the page. And I just really had a lot of fun trying to sort of fill in those blanks for myself, and I hope everyone else will too.
I went into this book blind. I knew like the general basic premise. I read the blurb, but like, I try not to like read too much into it. I like to try and go in like as spoiler free as possible, which is
Yes.
great for me because I get to read it ahead of everybody else. So spoilers are scant and far between. But I do remember reading it and I was like, is this is
It
this
sounds
a
familiar.
notebook? Is this what is this? And then I was like reading further and I was like, there's a point, like you said, where the story is split between the past and the present.
Mhm.
And there's a section in the past where, hints have been piling up, and I was like, I don't want to make assumptions. And it gets to a point where there is a lot of antagonizing
Mhm.
each other on set to the point where the director puts them in his trailer and says, "You're not coming out until you figure this out." And I went, "Yep, that's it.
That's it.
This is Rachel and Ryan."
Yes, yes, exactly that. Exactly that. Yeah. So there's very little information about this out there. Ryan has done like one interview where he talked about it. Rachel doesn't really talk about it. The director has talked about it a little bit. So the very minor tidbits that I've been able to gather, from these different interviews is what I used as my framework. And but I filled in the gaps from there. I mean, if you don't know anything about the Rachel and Ryan relationship, you probably you wouldn't even really make the connection. But if you do know about it, I planted all these little Easter eggs in there so that you might be like, oh, I remember hearing something like this. But it was a very fun thing for me to, creatively be able to think about like, well, why wouldn't they have gotten along? How could it be that they had this amazing, audition with, they just had the most amazing chemistry together at their audition. They must have gotten along at that point, right? And then once they get to the set, they didn't get along. Why would that be? What could be the reasons for that? And how can I build that into sort of a believable story and at the same time build their romance? Because clearly, if they didn't get along, but then they dated later, it wasn't really hate, right? It was something else. So it was just, yeah, it was really fun to sort of build that kind of piece by piece, fill in those blanks. And of course, I have no idea if that's really, really what was at the heart of it for them. And that's why this is a fictional story. So I do
Of
want to make
course.
that clear. I don't have an inside track. But yeah, and it was just really fun for me to figure out, okay, how am I going, like, what would it be that would have caused them to break up? And also, how could I bring them back together in the present day? It was very fun to weave these two storylines together. The way that I have it set up, it was very challenging for me. It's the first time I've written a book like this where you have these sort of interchanging chapters with these interchanging timelines, and each one affects the next. And so, putting it in the right place and in the right order and sort of giving people a little bit of a drip, drip, drip of information as you go along. So you're thinking, am I piecing this together? Like, do I think that this is what happened? Um, until of course we get to the last portion where you sort of get to find out what exactly was it that broke them up. I think that I'm curious if I don't think you finished it yet, but if it was a surprise to you, I'm really curious to hear from readers. Like, were you surprised or did you see some of these things coming? I do put hints in there, but they're not hit you over the head. So I think some people will get it, some people will not.
Yeah, I personally I haven't finished the book yet because I like to come into these interviews and not immediately gush about spoilers because I will. I will absolutely do that. So for the listener's sake, for your sake, for the book's sake, I decide not to finish it until after the interview is done. So I am also eager to find out what broke them up because I'm one of those people like I'm sure in hindsight, once I get there, I'll be like, of course, it
Oh,
was there
yes.
the whole time. Right now, I'm like, I don't know what broke them up. They're doing great. This is heartbreaking.
I know it was hard too, as to write towards a breakup. And I don't like to live in that negative space. So I really wanted to like kind of keep it to like one chapter, one scene. Um, but yeah, it's challenging because it's like, you spend the whole book really like setting them up as this couple. and you're watching them fall in love in the past as well as in the present. You just do not want to break them up. It was really hard to write that piece.
I did want to ask you a little bit about your writing process
Mhm,
because, again, the book takes place, we have past and present. And the
mhm.
past was 10 years ago when they are at the beginning of their Hollywood careers for the most part. They've both been cast in their first major role. And they're just such vastly different people from who they are in the present a decade later,
Yes.
both established and beloved in their careers. They've both made like personal changes
Yeah.
for the betterment of themselves, which I found was very refreshing. I find that, like, obviously other books have done time lapses.
Yes. Yeah.
But like, sometimes people will do a time lapse of like 2, 3 years, and it's like, I've changed, Rebecca. You changed that much in 2 years? I find that the decade that they had left room for like realistic
Yes.
growth,
Yeah.
and I really appreciated that. But what I wanted to ask in terms of your writing process was like, did you figure out the past and then figure out the present, or were you writing past, present, past, present? How do
Yes.
I weave this together?
So it was so challenging. I mean, this is the first time that I've written a book like this. A second chance romance is also different because in my previous two books, they're meeting each other in like the first chapter and you're sort of building their relationship for the first third of the book. Well, for a second chance novel like this, you have so much history starting from the first page. You're starting with a whole bunch, right? So it just everything about it structurally was completely different than anything I've done before. I would say I had the storyline pretty well like organized in my mind, but I also wasn't sure how I was going to set up these chapters. In fact, the way that it is now, the final version is, it interchanges every chapter, but that was not how I wrote it. I actually wrote usually like a couple of chapters at a time. So like if there's a scene, that takes place over a couple of chapters, I would keep that together and then I would go to the past and sort of explain maybe something that was confusing about something in their conversation in the present. But my editor really helped me kind of reorganize some of this stuff to make it, I think, a little smoother. Not so the reader isn't confused. Maybe they hear about something, in the present day, and then immediately we go into the past where they can kind of understand, the reference. So that was really interesting. But the thing that was really fun for me as a writer is when you're working with 10 years, it's exactly as you said. I had a lot of runway to really show how these characters were completely different 10 years later and why their relationship realistically would work 10 years later, where it couldn't have worked 10 years before. So even down to, for example, when they are first starting out and getting cast in this movie, she's struggling to get by. She's, can barely get a job, has no money. And then when you go into the present day, she's living in a mansion. She's very well known. She's a little bit in a gilded cage, where she's so famous and she doesn't necessarily want to be. And same thing with Ryder. He has different things that he's going through in his past, insecure, a variety of other things. And then in 10 years, he's also like really, really changed. So when they meet back up, they're learning a ton of new things about each other. They're explaining, how, they themselves have changed. And it just made it like a very clear delineation between the two timelines. And like for me, when I'm reading a second chance novel, that's a big piece of it is like, can I believe that these two will actually be able to work, the second time around? I think in this book in particular, like they've made so many changes to themselves personally and also in their lives that you would believe like, yes, like I think that these people have worked through the things that broke them up in the past when they were young and like less mature, and they would be able to make it work 10 years later.
Yeah, and like beyond the status, their Hollywood status, they really have like developed as people in
Hmm.
those 10 years. And I'm not going to get too far into it, but I thought it was quite refreshing to see like character development done in like a realistic and like healthy manner.
Hmm.
Ryder overcomes like, bad habits,
Yeah.
and he's taking accountability for like immature actions that he had when he was
Mhm.
younger. She has become much more confident, but again, she's also a lot different because now she is in a gilded cage
Yes.
in a way where she used to be so free. They used to be able to go to like the bar downtown, get drunk
Uh-huh.
with the locals, have a great time, and now she can't go anywhere without anybody like being in her face.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see how these things change the story and change this new relationship that they have with each
Yeah.
other.
Hmm.
Watching that happen was great. Did you have a timeline that you enjoyed writing more?
Oh my gosh, let me just tell you, this was like the scariest part for me is when I read dual timeline novels. Isn't there always one timeline that you prefer reading? And then when
Yes.
it goes, when you kind of get ripped out of that timeline, you're like, no, you know? And I was terrified about that because I'm a reader first and I know how I feel. And I was just absolutely determined, like, I am going to ensure that both of these timelines are just as juicy, that when you get taken back to the past or move forward to the present, that you're like still on the edge of your seat and you're like hungry. So that piece of it, was honestly like my number one focus, like my guiding light was this has to be just as good. There can't be any slow parts. There can't be any, compulsion for the reader to like skip ahead. And the element of having sort of two love stories in one, where you're seeing how they're falling in love for the first time in the past, and you're also seeing how they're falling in love again in the present. For me, that kept me totally like on even for both of them. So I didn't have one that I preferred at all, actually. I just had so much fun. Like the difference between writing, like 20-year-old kids and like 30-year-old adults, it's totally different. You can have fun in the past with sort of the, the immaturity and things like her 21st birthday, writing her 21st birthday. But then in the present day, going out on a boat and it just, I don't know. I really did have fun with both. So I didn't prefer one over the other. I've been watching my reviews come in specifically looking for that. Like, does anybody say like they enjoyed one or the other? But thankfully, I've really seen people saying the opposite. Like, I was equally as invested in both storylines, which for me is like the ultimate compliment because I was trying so hard for that.
I would say I'm probably in the same boat where I am equally invested because it is seeing them fall in love for
Hmm.
the first time. Like that's always so exciting to see two
Yes.
people like fall into each other. So of course you're like, yes, I want to read this. And then you get to the future and you're like, well, yeah, but I also want to figure
I
out
know.
what the hell is going on. And
And
then you
it's
finish.
so angsty too in the present day because there's so much like tension and there's so much unresolved that I feel like in both timelines you're like desperately waiting like can they just kiss? Like can we please make them kiss like in one of these timelines? I think that's the fun thing about writing slow burn is like you're really trying to build it. You're really trying to build that anticipation
Yes.
and it's you get sort of the double satisfaction.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're reading the past and you go, okay, I'm looking forward to reading the present because
Yes.
I want to see how they resolve this. But then you're reading the present, you're like, I want to read the past to figure out what happened. So it really is like a very smooth loop of keep pulling the reader forward chapter by chapter. And that's why I haven't been
Oh,
able to put it
well, I
down.
I really appreciate that's an amazing compliment because hearing it's a smooth loop. I mean, like that is the big challenge when you're doing this. Is like how can I make this seamlessly, flow from one chapter to the next? And it was really I was constantly asking myself that question.
Well, you nailed it. You did real good.
Thank you.
So now the book itself takes place past and present
Mhm.
in Sea Folly, South Carolina, which you said earlier is based on the Charleston Beach area. Um, and you also said that this is kind of around the same area where
Yes.
the Notebook took place.
Yes.
So you've kind of already answered my question of why did you decide to use this setting in particular?
Yes. Yeah. So when I went to Charleston for the very first time. It was actually in 2015. I was super pregnant with my fourth baby, and my husband and I decided to go on a little baby moon. And we had always wanted to go to Charleston, had never been there. And we both absolutely fell in love with it. And we spent some time in Charleston and also nearby at like the Wild Dunes, Isle of Palms area. And I had known that The Notebook was filmed around there in Seabrook Island. I visited a couple of the filming locations, of course, while we were there, and we ended up just loving it so much that we have gone back basically every year, and that's where we vacation with our family now. And we've stayed in kind of all of these sort of surrounding islands. It's beautiful. There's something very unique and special about this particular area in South Carolina. I think in general, the South Carolina people are the nicest I've ever met of any place I've ever been. In the whole United States, like they're just so friendly and so warm, and it's not an overcrowded, tourist spot. It has really unique history. If you go through Charleston and like take like the horse tour and all that, it's just a beautiful place. And Nicholas Sparks, of course, writes so many of his books, and he sets them in like the Low Country and North Carolina and South Carolina. And there's a reason for it. It's romantic and
Mhm.
it's beautiful, and there's like sort of a wistfulness to the area. So I'm just like the notebook of it all is really interesting. Like that, in the movie, of course, there's the famous scene where they are on the boat with the swans.
Mhm.
And that was filmed in Cypress Gardens, which is a sort of like a botanical, kind of swamp-like area that you can go through. It's beautiful. And I was like, I have to write that in. I gotta write that into this book. I have to I put a lot of little head nods and Easter eggs
Mhm.
in there for people who are familiar with the area, and of course familiar with the notebook as well. So I just love it. When we first visited, I actually wasn't even writing books yet, back in 2015. But I remember when I started writing my first book, I think it was like 2017 and 2018, I was like, I have got to write this area into a book. And I knew I wanted to write a beach read. I love beach reads myself, and I just really wanted that experience of like a book that comes out in the summer and has a really beachy, beautiful cover, and it has, summer in the title. And so anyway, this specific setting just gave me the perfect excuse and opportunity to do it. Setting is a big part of my books. My first book is Washington, D.C., which is just, very close to me. And the next book was New York City. I sort of believe in setting as a character. The setting needs to really permeate the story. And with a beach set book, it just is it just really adds to the romance, I think.
I agree. And I can really tell through your writing how much you love that area. And you're right, like the Sea Folly feels like its own character and like it is so romantic, but like beyond being romantic, which, props. But beyond being romantic, it is so heartfelt. And it does have like that wistful component, especially when the characters are coming back 10 years later. The whole reason why they're reunited is to do like a charity auction because the area has been devastated by hurricanes and they're trying to raise money to help build the community back up.
Mhm.
So, there's so much love that the characters have for that place because it is a special place for them. It's where their romance developed. It's where
Mhm.
their careers started.
Mhm.
The people of the city are described as so friendly and like it's such a beautiful place and the marshes and the
Oh
beaches and
yeah.
the sunsets. I was
Yes.
like, damn, I need a vacation.
It was like I was like, how can I cram every amazing part of this place in here? The beach and the marshes and like a boat ride and like a plane ride, and there's so much to choose from, even like downtown Charleston area.
Hmm.
Um, it's a very unique place. I tell people if you haven't been there, you absolutely should go. Um, it really like made its mark on me, and I just really had fun sort of building it out. But you're right, there is in the book it acts as a character because it's like the nostalgia, everything wrapped up in Sea Folly for them. It's like, for her, it's like her first love and the beginning of her career where her career took off. And she's like desperate to not go back because she knows that like it's going to be very challenging for her emotional state to be able to go back to somewhere that holds so many memories for her as they're there. But yeah, I really had a sort of I wanted to come up with a unique story. I mean, I've read a fair amount of like celebrity romance books where they're forced back together to like film a show, and I didn't want them to have to like film a show. I
Hmm.
wanted them to sort of be like steeped in the nostalgia and the like emotional toll, emotional damage of their setting. And anyway, yeah, so I had fun. I had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, and I think it's also like rewarding for a reader that like the characters aren't falling back in love while new characters are falling back in love. Like they
Yeah,
don't have to play act at falling in love. They are
that's
being
right.
their genuine selves without having to put too much of a mask on.
Yeah.
And they don't have to pretend to be anyone but themselves as they like reconnect and fall back in love with each other,
Yes, yes.
which is really nice.
Hmm.
Before we wrap up, I do have one confession for you.
Okay.
And it's an unpopular opinion.
Oh,
So
let's
I
hear
don't
it.
know how you're gonna.
Oh, I can't. I'm gonna. I have an inkling what you might say. Okay, let's go.
I don't like The Notebook. I hate that movie.
Okay, tell me why.
She's such a brat.
I thought you
She's
were going to say that you think that she should have ended up with Lon Hammond, aka James Marston,
yes.
and that Noah was a toxic relationship.
No. Well, you know what? I should probably watch it now that I'm like older and like more mature. But when I watched it when I was younger, I was like, "Oh my God, like get over it." First I was like, I hate this relationship. Then, you know, spoiler alert for a 20-year-old movie, things
Yes,
work out.
thanks for going.
And then people are always like, "Oh, it's such a sad ending. They passed away." And I'm like, they lived a whole life with each other. Like it's not sad. They did it. They achieved the dream. So on every level, I don't like that movie. And I'm sorry.
You're allowed to have your wrong opinion.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
no.
Here's what I have to say about the Notebook. I've heard that point of view, and you're definitely entitled to that. I think I do love the storyline where they're older and of course they die together. I think what's interesting is as I've been kind of posting on social media about the Notebook connection, a lot of people will say, "Oh, this is like my grandparents' story. They died like right at the same time." And I have a similar story like that with my grandparents. So
Hmm.
there's something that I think like really resonates with people about that part of the storyline. But for me, the movie itself, now I consider the book and the movie to be almost like totally separate entities. In fact, the book, it's actually a 14-year gap that they have in the book
Hmm.
and a 7-year gap in the movie, which I think is more reasonable. 14 years is a long time. But anyway, the movie itself, for me, is like the greatest romance movie of all time. And here's why for me.
Okay.
So many movies, rom-coms in particular, they usually have like a B plot, side characters, something maybe that's like going on in their work life or their job that kind of, is a sort of a separate element of the plot. In the Notebook movie, there is no other element of this movie. It is their romance the whole way through. In both storylines, it's fully their romance. There's very little from side characters. Nothing about jobs, whatever. I it's so unique to me that you can actually have a movie that's fully carried just by their romance the
Mhm.
entire way through, and you're completely gripped by it. Their chemistry in this movie, in my opinion, is second to none. I don't think I've ever seen a movie where the chemistry is as strong as the two of them in this movie. And for me, I just don't think that will ever change. I just think their chemistry just like screams off the screen. And so every time I watch it, I feel like I notice something else, like, some little mannerism or, the way that even like the way certain lines are delivered is just unique. I don't get that from romances anymore. I feel like every romance I see, oh, like, how can I explain it? Like, so that movie filmed for like 4 to 5 months, I think.
Hmm.
Most movies now are filmed in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So I think that the fact that they were able to sort of luxuriate in the filming process, that they lived there in the area. They even said like Ryan Gosling moved there prior to the movie even being filmed, and he apprenticed at a furniture maker. Okay, because in the movie he makes furniture. It's such a minor part of the movie. Like that is the kind of detail that I just think it translates on screen in a way that movies now just don't. They don't have that kind of level of detail. So I don't know. For me, it's like I can watch it a million times. I never get tired of it. I love it so much. But I'm okay with you not loving it.
I
As long as you
appreciate
love the
that.
book.
Well, what I was going to say was, I do not like The Notebook, the movie. To be fair, I haven't tried the book. I should give it a try.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say was that, Star-Crossed Summer has given me a new appreciation for The Notebook from like a different lens, a
Yes,
different
perspective. Yeah.
perspective. And I kind of almost want to go back and watch The Notebook just to like see if I feel differently about it, like
Mhm,
thinking about
mhm.
like things happening in the background.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like knowing that they were like it was truly an enemies to lovers relationship. I mean, that's one thing that as romance authors we hear all the time is like this is fake, no one actually fake dates and no one falls in love with their enemy. Well, guess what?
They do.
They
They
do.
do
They do.
actually.
Yeah, they do. It happens. And here's the proof.
Yes. Yeah, I can't praise this book enough. I haven't finished it. Again, I haven't finished it. I didn't want to spoil anything. I haven't been able to put it down. It is so good. The romance is like just it's so pure in a
Mhm.
way.
Yes.
Um, and they have such insane chemistry with each other. And I'm very excited to see what other people think about this when the book is published next month. Well, for our listeners, it
Yeah.
was like, this week, but
Yeah. Thank you so much for those sweet compliments. I really appreciate it. It's very fun that it's finally getting out there and I finally get to hear feedback on this book because it really has been like, years in the making for me. I mean, I've been thinking about it for 20 years.
well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Is there anything you want to share with our listeners, your readers, before we close today's chapter?
Um, no, just that I hope that everyone enjoys the book. And if you're heading out on vacation anywhere, it's the perfect book to pack in your suitcase, in your beach bag.
I agree. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Devon. And with that, it is time to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.